everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Campaigns to Cash, Using Data to Maximize ROI. Today's webinar is presented by Looker, along with our partner, Datasticians. Before we dive into content, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping things with you. First off, we are recording this webinar, and we will send you the recording as well as the slides tomorrow. Second, we will be doing Q&A at the end. As you have questions, please feel free to send them in. You should see a Q&A box on the right-hand side of your console. If it's not there, look to the menu at the bottom. There should be a little widget that you can pop open and put your questions in there. All right, today I am joined by Tarlok Sagu, the founder and principal at Datasticians, as well as Jake Yost, a senior alliances analyst at Looker. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for being here. Okay, I am going to let them dive in, and I am going to hand it off to Tarlok. Thank you.
Hi everyone. This is Tarlok here. So let me just walk you through some of the situation and scenario of the block and the campaign to cash use case and how we look to address it. So I'm just going to move slides here. There we go. So what we're going to try and do is understand how you can leverage this block to look at your marketing campaign investments and where they create leads and opportunities and eventually revenue, obviously by understanding the metrics behind them. And just to explain what a block is in the terms of Looker, it's an accelerator with pre-built templates and models that allow you to implement a solution on top of your systems that have this data, so you can actually be relatively quickly up and running with some analytics. And again, we're going to go through that and we'll demo that product as well for you. So before I go there, let me just very quickly introduce Datasticians, just a couple of slides. So we're obviously a partner with Looker. We're a services provider, and really our tagline is around transforming your data for better decision making. And we really do that around four aspects of our business, and those basically are thought leadership, where we drive a lot of thought leadership to our clients and actually give them information that they need to be thinking about. Innovation in terms of building out new types of solutions that customers have not even thought through in their use cases. We obviously provide technology expertise as we are a services provider. We have many technologies that we support, obviously with Looker. And the last one is really around the analytics journey, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide, just so you understand what that means. And obviously, from the information you see below, we're a full service provider where we can do both advisory around your data and analytics journey, and look at your data architecture and help you build analytics and visualizations, right through to predictive analytics, and then some customers who actually want to do outsource their management of their analytics solutions. We provide that as an offshore option as well. So the other thing that I talked briefly about was the analytics journey, and this is really what differentiates us in the market. Many customers who approach us up front typically have a problem they're trying to solve around a use case. And what we try to do is help them understand how to address that existing problem, but also help them understand what this journey is that they're about to endeavor on in the market that they're trying to address. And that typically starts with reporting and very quickly matures into analytics. And then once you understand your analytics, you quickly mature that into dashboarding. And those things really happen very quickly in a situation where you're looking at historical data. But the other thing that's really critical now in today's market, in the 21st century industries, more and more customers are dealing with predictive data and how to really deal with looking at future trends in their data and how to potentially make decisions around predictive analytics. So that's really an important aspect of the analytics journey. And so as a vendor, we pride ourselves in the fact that we are one of the few that can actually do this and walk you through that full journey path and help you build a roadmap for that. Okay, so let's move into the actual situation with the campaign to cash solution and the problem statement that actually happens in customers and potential situations. So typically a business process around marketing campaigns moving into some sort of cash on the other end of the business process, there's a number of steps that happen in the middle. And basically, what I've depicted here is a funnel that represents, in red, it's in red because it's basically an investment that you have to make in campaigns, marketing campaigns, which ultimately, the intent of those campaigns is to drive inbound leads and opportunities for ultimately closing into sales orders, which eventually drive revenue. So the key use case covers marketing and sales, and then eventually, obviously, sales order tracking as well. So you're basically trying to drive everything from end to end to make sure that you're looking at the whole lifespan of those campaigns and how they're turning into cash. And obviously, again, what I mentioned was there's a spend, and you're looking at revenue, and then really what the underlying tone of the metric is about return on investment. And then the block actually represents the different ROI metrics that need to be tracked in this very specific use case around the campaigns to cash. So just digging into a bit more detail on that. So the typical scenario is the problem statement that you normally have with many customers is this data for marketing campaigns, for leads, for opportunities, and for the orders, they all live in different systems. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide, visually give you a view of what that looks like. But fundamentally, it takes a long time to pull that data together if you haven't got a single system built to actually address that use case and problem. And because it takes a long time to pull together, it's generally done manually, which is more error-prone and doesn't provide you some interactivity with the eventual output, which is the reporting and the analytical reporting that you have to build at the end. So it's very, very cumbersome, very long-winded, and potentially has a lot more problems around it. And so really what the scenario is that you're looking to pull this data together so you can actually look at the whole lifespan from marketing campaigns right the way through to the orders and measure those ROI metrics. And ultimately, some of the questions you then ask around that is, where do I invest my marketing funds? Because I want to see where I'm getting the biggest return on my investment. And that's not just specifically just the marketing campaigns. Also, you could, if you have geographical locational data, you can actually look at where in specific geographies are my marketing campaigns successful and where are they not successful. And how can you tweak some of those marketing campaigns to actually drive revenue? So typical users for this, obviously the CEO would want to have this level of data because marketing dollars are very scarce in today's world, and they want to make sure that they're spending in the right places. As the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and the Chief Revenue Officer both have the same intent to try and drive revenue. But obviously the VP of Sales, VP of Marketing, are also very heavily invested into trying to understand what these metrics look like and why they, where these are actually showing good positive results. So let me just move to the next slide. So let me show you typically what's done today with customers that do not have a solution in place that address this use case. So looking at the left-hand side, this represents the different source systems, and I've given examples of vendors that provide these systems, but basically you will have an order system, an opportunity tracking system, a lead management system, and a campaign management system. And within those systems, they obviously are not connected together on the back end. So when you want to do some tracking of this data, as I mentioned in the previous slide, basically somebody actually has to pull the data one by one, sit down, and actually then go and merge the data together. Either they do it in a database on their laptop, or they do this in Excel. And then eventually what they have to end up doing is pushing the output of the data they consolidated into Excel reports or some PowerPoint type reports, which then get taken into a meeting, or they're shared amongst an email that then provide the metrics. And typically this can take weeks to do this type of analysis. And again, it can be error prone because there's so much human intervention in actually trying to get this done. Now, what does the campaign to cash solution look like, the block that I was referring to earlier on? So what we do now, what we've done with Looker as a partner, we've basically built this campaign to cash block, which brings, so if we look at the Looker piece, it brings a number of different templates and metrics together, and it hinges on top of a database, a data model that actually pulls the data together using automation through some type of ETL or data extraction technology from those four source systems. And then with Looker, we actually have pre-built templates that show the underlying metrics. And Jake's going to actually demo those in a second. But this is the underlying view of how you now have an automated system which can give you up-to-date information depending on the time of refresh that you have of your campaigns and how they're turning into leads and how they're turning into opportunities, and eventually how many of those are turning into cash. And obviously you can then go and slice and dice into that data to look at specific investments that you made and where you may want to reinvest, or where you may want to tweak some of the campaigns based upon different geographies or parameters that you've set around them based upon the metrics that you're looking at now. So that's the overall solution. Let me pass over to Jake to do the demo.
Great, thanks, Tarlok. I'm just going to take a second to share my screen. And now you can see the kind of executive dashboard of the campaign to cash block. Dashboards are a good place to start to get into data and start asking questions, and this executive summary is a nice summary of that funnel that Tarlok was talking about. And I really like this block for that reason. You get a lot of information right up front. So across the top, we can see those important metrics all together. Like Tarlok was saying, it looks simple, but this is actually pulling from a bunch of different data sources to get us the top level information we want. How many campaigns have we run? How many leads did that generate? From those leads, what became opportunities? And then what opportunity revenue do those represent? And finally, what's our booked revenue? And I'll show you in a moment how we can start to dig into those and really understand what's happening at the campaign level or the opportunity level for those items. But I also want to walk through some of the other high-level things we can see at this executive summary. We're able to look at the marketing opportunity revenue versus opportunity revenue from other sources. So we're seeing kind of the overall effectiveness of our marketing as well as at booked revenue. So revenue coming from bookings is representing about 81% of our total revenue, which is important to know. We get a geographic sense of where our opportunities and revenues are coming from. So we can get an idea of maybe how we want to run campaigns in the future based on success or based on where we want to see more opportunities. We also have the opportunity to look at break that campaign performance up in different ways. So in this case, we can look at the campaign costs for different types of campaigns. Not surprisingly, we see it takes a lot more to run an event campaign than it does an email blast. So those are important types of things to be able to look at. And then what are the revenue coming from those as well? ROI is kind of the big metric here that's important. And as Tarlok mentioned, this is really what we're trying to see is how effective are these campaigns? How much revenue are they bringing in. So we can track our revenue on investment by event type and over time. So we can track things like it looks like the ROI by promotions are decreasing, and so that's going to urge us to look at that and see what we can do for those types of promotions. Furthermore, we can look at revenue by whether it's assisted or sourced. So is it assisted by the marketing campaigns or sourced elsewhere? We can look at the top 5 campaigns by revenue. And again, this is the kind of thing I like to point out. It looks trivial at the dashboard level, but is actually pretty significant because we've taken now the top of the funnel campaign and we're looking at booked revenue together. So we can see what campaign gave us our most revenue. It looks like Avalanche Recruit Drive was successful. So now we have some information about that. And then at the bottom, we're looking at different opportunity revenues broken up in different ways. So the same number, 5.3 million almost, broken out by campaign type. So although those event campaigns are costing a lot of money, we're getting a lot of opportunity revenue out of it. By segment, so we can see, are we looking at our enterprise, major opportunities or emerging opportunities? Or by objective, what are we trying to do with this campaign? So it's important to be able to split those same metrics up in many ways. One of the things that's nice about having a platform like this is you can define that core concept like revenue, and then each of these are automatically correct based on that definition. So no matter the complexity of that definition, it's easy to build these types of metrics that just come out of the box correct. So having walked through the dashboard, let's start to think about how we can dig into this and really understand what's going on better. So we can dig into this a couple of ways. With the 25 campaigns we've run, we might want to just dig in and drill and see what those 25 campaigns were. So right from the dashboard, I can get to row level information where we've summarized a number of those things we talked about before. So now I'm breaking out the campaign cost and how many leads came from each, how those each became opportunities. So this is a good way to start to educate myself about those campaigns. From here, I can also actually drill into a campaign details dashboard. So if I click on this, I'm led to a new dashboard that's really designed to tell me about my campaigns. So right now, this is about all of my campaigns together. So we've got total cost and aggregate cost per lead, ROI. But if I wanted to look at something in particular, we saw that Avalanche Blast event 2016 was kind of our most revenue, got us the most booked revenue. So I can run a filter on that. And that's going to tell me the cost of that campaign. I'm going to get the cost per lead that campaign generated, customer acquisition cost, the return on the investment, as well as starting to look at things like the campaign effectiveness. So here we're starting to see more of the funnel type metrics. We have from quarter 1 and quarter 2, how people's response rate led to opportunities and how that led to orders. Similar metrics here, we can see now the top 5 campaigns by opportunity revenue and performance, and in this case, we still have our campaign details. These metrics are singular because they're just looking at this one campaign, Alexandria Blast event, but I can see the booked orders. And if I want to see the orders from that, I can explore and get to the row level detail from there. If I go back to my executive summary, I can do similar things. The way this is built is really nice because each of these top level metrics is going to take me to the next level down the funnel. So if I want to know more about my leads, I can click here, click on lead details, and come into the leads dashboard. And we have a similar subset, so a similar arrangement throughout this block, which I really like. So we kind of always have this top level leading to the right to see the funnel. So for our leads, how many total inquiries did we have? Which leads are pending? How many are qualified? And how many did we reject? Again, I can filter on the different components or campaigns so that I can see the specific information anywhere I go. Top campaigns in terms of leads looks a little bit different than top campaigns in terms of opportunity or revenue. So we can see now which campaigns are generating the most leads. We can look at the leads by campaign objective. So really, this is the kind of dashboard that's going to give us all the information that we want about leads, even breaking it down by industry. And then we can look at that same type of funnel based on time to leads, to qualified leads. So within the leads funnel, really, how do we get from total inquiries to qualified leads? And so then drilling into opportunities. So we've looked at the top level campaigns. How does that produce leads? What do we want to know about opportunities? Similarly, we're going to build an opportunity dashboard where you can see the same type of funnel. Total opportunities, how many are open, how many won, and how many closed. I can get to row level details just as before by clicking on, if I want to see the successful opportunities that we've won, I can click on the won opportunities, and here they are. And I can also see how our total pipeline is looking at this point for opportunities. So going from won opportunities, how many we've lost, how many we've qualified, planned, and created, so we can get an idea of the total pipeline that's coming towards us. We can see it by time, and of course, that conversion rate from opportunity to actually making an order. So it looks like we're pretty stable there. That's good. And then just on like the other dashboards, I actually have a list of my opportunity details. And going to the last part of our funnel then, looking at revenue, being able to see all this in the same place, I can link out to my order detail dashboard and go quickly through this, seeing which orders I have in progress, how many are pending, how many are closed, and what's our delivery ratio. This is the type of thing where we may want to actually take action on this data. I may want to look at these orders and bring them up. I could explore this, and I could even, with Looker, send these out to other people. I could take this URL and send it to my ops team, my shipping team, and that way they can take action and know what orders we have pending, when they're supposed to come up, so that we can really be using this data to move our organization. We also have a list here of kind of trailing 12 months of data, of orders, and down again to the granular level detail of those orders. So throughout, you see this pattern of within each level, leads, opportunities, orders, being able to see the whole funnel within each category, and then also we have the executive summary. And the way this has been set up is really nice because they're each filterable to be looked at in terms of what the campaign is, what the parent campaign is. So I can always get information on a specific question I have and start to figure out, where do I want to spend my money? How am I getting my leads? Are they worth the money I'm spending? Do I want to shift focus to other campaigns, etc.? That's what I wanted to show for the demo.
Great. Thank you so much, Jake. And thank you, everybody. So we are now going to move over to the Q&A section of this. As I said at the beginning, you should see a Q&A box on the right-hand side of your console. Feel free to send in any questions you have through there. In the meantime, let's get started. Tarlok, I am going to start with you. What does it take to implement a block like this, and how long do you think it would take someone to get up and running?
Yeah, it's a good question. So just to kind of answer that question and then explain what that is in the context of if you build something fresh. So it's basically approximately about 4 weeks worth of effort to implement the block. Obviously, we come with the block obviously has a pre-built set of templates and data model, and really the implementation consists of setting up what we call the extra ETL layer of the technology, which is really the data pool that we have to pull, where we pull the data from the source systems. So that's really the complexity that's really involved, but the rest of it is actually fairly straightforward and configurable. So it's about 4 weeks. Obviously, if you have a more complex source of data and it requires a little bit of work, it can increase in time, but 4 weeks is probably the minimum that we suggest. Now, in contrast, if you were to try and build this yourself from scratch, you're potentially looking at 2 months plus to build a solution like this on top of Looker. So obviously still 4 weeks is an accelerated time to get you up and running for a very specific use case to drive ROI. So that's some contrast I want to make sure that you guys are aware of.
Awesome. And I mean, when we're talking about getting a full view of your marketing funnel from spend to ROI, 4 weeks. 4 weeks is it sounds pretty good, yeah, as someone who's tried to set that up without it.
Yep.
All right, Jake, I'm going to turn this next question over to you. Can you tell us more about what blocks are and where we find them and what else they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Looker blocks, the way I like to describe it is that we want to build our analytics stack block by block. So each particular block gives us a certain piece of insight into our business. In this case, campaigns to cash gives us very quickly some templated code and some patterns analytically so that we can see the demo that we just saw. So we can have everything together and analyze what we want to do with our marketing spend. Looker also has other blocks. Some of them are source blocks. So some of our other partners are technology partners, for example, that create data, that the data comes out the same time every way. So it's very easy to template our analytical code to capture that so that you can get started with your analysis much quicker. And then you can put analytical blocks on top of those, like campaign to cash or like a cohort block. And all of these blocks can be found on the Looker website. We have a blocks directory, and we'll have a link to that with part of the webinar.
Cool. Maybe kind of give us like an image of what that setup looks like. You're talking about source blocks. What does that necessarily mean for people on the line?
Sure. So a block is really, you can think of it as a piece of templated code for our LookML, which is our modeling layer, which is how Looker is describing how the data sits. So an example of a source block could be one of our technology partners, Segment, captures different sources of data and pipes them into a database. And because we know what that data is going to look like in the database, we can start modeling it much quicker because we have a template of code that can just point to the same schemas and the same data architecture. And so from there, we can get, from building that source block, which tells how that data sits in the database, we can then build on top of that different other blocks, like a campaign to cash block if that has the right information, or cohorting how users interact with data as they go through.
Perfect. All right. Well, as promised, this is a brief webinar. We want to get you back to your daily life. So we hope that you have enjoyed this. Ooh, sorry. Getting a little violent here. If you want to learn more about what we've talked about today, we have some contact information for Tarlock at Datasticians, as well as for Looker, and to learn more about Looker blocks. As I said at the beginning, we will send you the recording and the slides from this tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.